Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Well folks, this is going to be the last episode of the Year of the Dog this week. And don't worry, I may have 1 or 2 dog films left to blog this year, but anyway, for today's blog, I'm going to look into a classic Disney film from the mid-50s, which is not only the time when The Happiest Place on Earth opened, but it's also a movie that my mom and dad consider a favorite of theirs. Released on June 22nd, 1955, the movie is Lady and the Tramp. Now let's get started. The film follows a pampered Cocker Spaniel named Lady, whose comfortable life slips away once her owners have a baby. When, after some tense circumstances, Lady finds herself on the loose and out on the street. She is befriended and protected by the tough stray mutt Tramp. A romance begins to blossom between the two dogs, but there are many differences, along with more drama at Lady's household, threaten to keep them apart. So, what do I think of this movie? Well, in all honesty, I like this movie as equally as my parents do. I don't care if this movie was ever panned, because this was another film I loved to watch when I was young. But to further explain why I enjoyed the movie, let's move on to Mustang Notes. Now, this movie was the first animated feature filmed in the CinemaScope widescreen film process. In 1937, Disney storyman Joe Grant came up with an idea inspired by the antics of his English Springer Spaniel named Lady, and how she got shoved aside by Joe's new baby. He approached Walt Disney with sketches of Lady. Disney enjoyed the sketches and commissioned Grant to start story development on a new animated feature titled Lady. Throughout the late 30s and early 40s, Joe Grant and other artists worked on the story, taking a variety of approaches. But Disney was not pleased with any of them, primarily because he thought Lady was too sweet, and there was not enough action. Then, Walt Disney read the short story written by Ward Green titled Happy Dan, the Cynical Dog, in a Cosmopolitan magazine published in 1945. He thought that Grant's story would be improved if Lady fell in love with a cynical dog character like the one in Green's story, and bought the rights to it. The cynical dog had various names during development, including Homer, Rags, and Bozo, before Tramp was chosen. The finished film is slightly different from what was originally planned. For example, Lady was to have only one next-door neighbor, a Ralph Bellamy-type canine named Hubert. But Hubert was later replaced with Jock and Trusty. Aunt Sarah was the traditional overbearing mother-in-law, but in the final film, she is softened to a busybody who, though antagonistic towards Lady and Tramp, is well-meaning. Aunt Sarah's cats, Nip and Tuck, were later renamed Cy and Am. Originally, Lady's owners were called Jim Brown and Elizabeth. These were changed to highlight Lady's point of view. They were briefly referred to as Mr. and Mrs. before settling on the names Jim Dear and Darling. To maintain a dog's perspective, Darling and Jim's faces are rarely shown, similar to Mammy Two Shoes in the Tom and Jerry cartoons. The rat was, well, a somewhat comic character in early sketches, but it became a great deal more frightening due to, well, the need to raise dramatic tension. Also, a scene created by then deleted was one in which, after Trusty says, "Everyone knows a dog's best friend is his human," which is where Tramp describes a world in which the roles of both dogs and humans are switched. The dogs are the masters and vice versa. And there was a love triangle among Lady, Tramp, and a Russian wolfhound named Boris. What's more, the film's opening sequence, in which Darling unwraps a hat box on Christmas morning and finds Lady inside, was inspired by an incident when Walt Disney presented his wife Lily with a chow puppy as a gift in a hat box to make up for having previously forgotten a dinner date with her. Now that to me must have been very sweet. As for the animation, well, like 101 Dalmatians and other Disney films from the Golden Age, the animation for this movie is classic. I really like how the animators drew and animated the many different dogs in this movie, as well as a few other animals like cats, beavers, alligators, apes, you name them. And I really like how they designed this little town that looked like it came straight out of Missouri. Plus, I heard that part of the town was inspired by a section of Main Street USA at Disneyland, despite the fact that the park did not open until a month after this movie's release. Now, the scenes that I really enjoy in this movie are, 1, the scene where Lady races Jim, 2, the scene where Tramp protects Lady from 3 junkyard dogs, and later when he saves the baby from a big ugly rat. And 3, I like the part where Tramp helps Lady get a muzzle off her face by giving it to a beaver in order to help him move a log into the river. However, I don't like the part where Tramp disturbs a bunch of chickens. And another thing, the dog howling song at the pound is pretty much one of the saddest scenes I've ever seen in a Disney movie. I mean, you guys should see how the dogs in the pound feel. They feel really sad and lonely. Plus, in my opinion, even if a dog is not licensed, they shouldn't be treated this way. Plus, the part where the pound dogs tell Lady about other female dogs that Tramp got together with sounded pretty similar to Harold Hill from The Music Man getting a girl in every county in Illinois. Oh, bonus fact. In the Kingdom Hearts franchise, even though they don't appear as characters, there's a statue of Lady and Tramp in the 3rd District. Now let's talk about the songs in the movie. Now before I get started, I need to let you guys know that a majority of the songs in this movie were composed by Peggy Lee, along with Sonny Burke. Plus, Peggy Lee voices 4 characters in this movie, like Darling, Cy, Am, and Peg. Also, I'm sad that Peggy Lee is no longer with us anymore due to her tragic death from diabetes in 2002, the same sickness who killed Wayne Alwayne. Anyway, the first song in the movie is Peace on Earth, aka Silent Night, which, in my opinion, is a nice Christmas song and a nice way to open up the movie. Plus, this song gets a sweet reprise at the end of the movie. Next, we come to La La Lu, which is a lullaby sung by Darling. To me, this is a very sweet song, and I think Peggy Lee's singing is very motherly. Plus, despite what Tramp told her earlier, I'm happy that Jim Deere and Darling don't change their feelings for Lady when she sees baby Jim Jr. Next we have the Siamese Cat song, sung by Cy and Am. During the song, these mean cats cause a lot of destruction around the house, and they try to attack a canary and eat a goldfish. Plus, I don't like that they get Lady into a lot of trouble by pretending to be hurt. However, I'll never forget the time when I was introduced to this song by watching the Hi-Ho Disney sing-along video. Next we come to the movie's love song, Bella Notte, sung by Tony. While Lady and Tramp eat spaghetti together on a romantic moonlit date. And during the second half of the song, it is sung by a chorus when they are taking a romantic walk through the park. Now, Bella Notte has become one of the most iconic love songs and has become an unforgettable Disney moment. And, like the Siamese Cat song that I talked about earlier, I was introduced to this song from a Disney sing-along video. Only this song was featured on the Be Our Guest video. Plus, since this song is Italian-styled, it explains why my mom and dad love this movie. However, it is only my dad who's Italian, while my mom is American. The last song in the movie is He's a Tramp, sung by Peg. Now, this song pretty much describes what Tramp is like. Also, the song was nominated for AFI's 100 Years, 100 Songs, as one of the 15 songs from Disney and one of 17 songs from an animated movie to be nominated. Anyway, now that we're done with Mustang notes, animation, and songs, let's move on to the characters and the voice actors. Our first main character, Lady, is voiced by Barbara Luddy, who, after this movie, voiced Merryweather in Disney's Sleeping Beauty, one of the 99 puppies in 101 Dalmatians, Kanga in The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and she voiced Mother Sexton and Mother Rabbit in Disney's Robin Hood. Now, Lady is a beautiful American Cocker Spaniel. She is rather demure and naive, but she makes a good friend to those who know her, and she's very faithful to her family. She's not completely helpless, and she can be brave and protective. She was not afraid of the rat, and would chase it away from her home, and she took on the responsibility to protect the baby. Our second main character, Tramp, is voiced by Larry Roberts, whom, during the same year, was in Damon Runyon Theater before he died from AIDS in 1992. Now, Tramp is a mongrel with a nick for dodging dog catchers and the ability to pick locks with his nose. He calls Lady Pidge, which is short for pigeon, due to her naiveness. He never refers to himself by name, although most of the film's canine cast refers to him as the Tramp. It is not until the sequel in which the humans call him Tramp, and it is never explained why they name him with the very name that he was known by on the streets. Tramp had other names in the movie, and when asked by Lady about having a family, Tramp states that he has, well, one for every day of the week. Point is, none of them have him. Each family mentioned called him a different name, and they have a different nationality. As he did not belong to a single family, Tramp implied that it was easier than the baby problems that Lady was going through at the time. Next we have Lady's friends. Jock, voiced by Bill Thompson, and Trusty, voiced by Bill Bockham. Jock is a Scottish Terrier, and Trusty is a bloodhound who used to track down criminals with his grandpappy, Old Reliable, until he lost his sense of smell. In my opinion, these guys are really good friends, especially during the parts where they explain to Lady about Darling's pregnancy. And even though they didn't really like Tramp at first, I'm glad that they managed to save him from the dog catcher after hearing that Tramp killed the rat. Unfortunately, even though he does survive, Trusty got hurt in the process. Next we come to Aunt Sarah, voiced by Verna Felton, who got to be in Dumbo, along with Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and The Jungle Book. Now, in this film, Sarah comes to take care of baby Jim Jr. when Jim Dear and Darling leave the house for a few days to where I do not know. As mentioned earlier, Sarah is a well-meaning busybody of a maiden aunt who adores her Siamese cats, Cy and Am. But she does not believe that dogs should be around babies. She puts a muzzle on Lady's face, chains her to a doghouse, and blames both her and Tramp for the baby's crib being knocked over, not knowing that they were actually protecting the baby from the rat. This is why I deeply hate this character, and I consider her a... Plus, I think if Jim Dear and Darling could have told Sarah about how helpful Lady is, then things would have been okay. But at least she sends a box of doggy biscuits for Christmas in the final scene, in an attempt to make amends for her mistreating of the dogs. Other voice actors in the movie include George Givett, Lee Miller, Stan Freberg, Alan Reed, Thurl Ravenscroft, and Dallas McKinnon. And now, let's move on to my final words. Overall, Lady and the Tramp is another classic Disney movie. The story has a lot of heart and soul, the animation is classic, the characters like Lady and Tramp have nice chemistry, Jock and Trusty make great friends, and what they did to save Tramp from the dog catcher was very brave. The other dogs in the movie, like Peg, are also very memorable, despite the fact that they're locked up in the pound. The rat was a really terrifying enemy, even though it didn't get that much screen time. Plus the songs in this movie, like Bella Notte, La La Lu, and He's a Tramp, are classic Disney songs. On the other hand, Cy and Am are mischievous and troublesome cats, and Aunt Sarah isn't really a nice character due to her mistreating Lady. Still, after watching this movie again, I can deeply understand why several audiences, including my parents, love this movie. And if I ever had children of my own someday, I wouldn't mind showing this movie to them. So, I'll give this movie a 77% out of 100. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. Be sure to tune in for my next blog. Mustang Power.